All right, guys. So this is Jacob Nelson from my personal channel by the same name, um, and we are going to talk today personality discussion, INFP and INFJ. We'll talk about different topics, but first I would like to introduce Scott from Introvert Power. Maybe you can say a few things, say a few
Yeah,
words.
hi everybody. Hi everybody. My name's Scott. I'm an INFJ and Enneagram Type 4. And as Jacob said, my channel name is Introvert Power. I have a Facebook page that I've just set up for Introvert Power that you could check out. And my website is personalitypower.com.au.
Great, excellent. Yeah. I also have a page, maninthedream.com. If you're wondering what that tagline at the bottom was, that is another character. We'll talk about characters in the discussion. That is a good segue into what this is about. We're talking about three different areas, mainly three-part video series on INFP and INFJ dealing with identity, death, and abandonment, and sticking to things, sticking to one thing. So I'd first like to talk about identity and how both of these types deal with the notion of identity. So Scott, how do you deal with identity as an INFJ?
Um, it's just such a big topic. So just trying to find my way into it. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that um, there's a sense that it's like I have this underlying quest or journey that I'm on
Mm-hmm.
uh, that tends to drive me, and I think a lot of my identity is connected to that. Um, and some of that I think is very quite explicit. Like I could sort of name that journey, but I find that it's like I carry eternal eternal questions, or it's like a deeper sort of searching and seeking for something that is sort of unexplainable.
Mm.
And there's a sense of I sometimes get glimpses of that at various stages in life. They're usually like really major aha moments that speak to my identity, speak to who I am and where I'm going. So maybe that would be my first
That's
explanation of it.
right. That's interesting. I think I'm gonna make a note of that because I want to tie that into another later sticking to one deal with faith and religion, and there's a whole sorts of things we can deal with that. But you mentioned these aha moments,
Mm.
and I've met quite a few INFJs and talk about religion, and they seem to have these moments when everything just made sense to them. Everything,
Mm.
like all of their pieces that they had, that they were the puzzle they were working on. Finally, they had whatever piece it was they found, and all the
Mm-hmm.
links worked, and it just made sense. And,
Yeah,
whereas that's
that's
very
a good
different than
description.
INFP, which I'll get into. But
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
like these aha moments um, are sort of like you said, like it's part of your identity. But um, if you can also talk about how these aha moments, in a sense, guide you
Mm.
with your identity. Like, now that you've had this aha moment, do you keep it and then you build different aha moments to build something greater, or are those just moments and then you keep building a different puzzle, or is it part of a larger puzzle?
Mm. Um, yeah, I think for me, just personally, how I would describe it is, so I don't know. I don't think I'm talking necessarily for all INFJs, but be curious to I guess hear if other INFJs do connect to this. Um, so they act kind of like markers in a way.
Mm.
And I sort of, to use your analogy of like the jigsaw puzzle,
Yeah.
that part of the journey, or that part of the identity that's sort of the below the awareness, like the conscious awareness. And I guess in some ways that's where the NI is. It's like there's a great reservoir of stuff there. But it's like having being on the journey. The picture I kind of have is right now as we're talking. It's like
Hmm.
all of these jigsaw pieces that aren't all quite fitting together, and I don't know they're not all fitting together until I have the aha moment when they all. It's like I have a moment where everything fits together within me,
Mm. Mm.
and it's kind of like a confirmation. Yes, you're on the right path. You're on the
Right.
right track.
Right.
There's a
Right.
greater sense of purpose. There's a greater sense of direction. Um, and in a way, it's like I experience myself in a pure way, like in a real connected way, and um, and
Mm. Mm.
and they're usually quite powerful, and it's like they resonate for some time. And if anything, I almost feel like they help to guide me, or give me a sense of security as I continue along the path, until
Yes.
I have
Mm.
another one of those.
Okay. So the sense of security. I want to kind of touch upon that. Uh, do you, what happens, or do you have times where you go, okay, I might need to relook at that aha moment and see if it really was authentic, or or
Mm.
do you ever feel like it's no longer valid, and you have to say, okay, I thought I had it, but no, I didn't have it, and I have to scrap it and start over again.
Um, I'm smiling. I don't know why I'm smiling, to be honest with you, but there's something about that resonates. So I think, yeah, there's a sense of like doubting that. There's a sense sometimes of doubting those moments, or needing.
Mm,
It's almost like wanting to go back and re-experience the certainty of
mm,
it,
mm, mm,
or
mm,
the comfort
mm.
of feeling really congruent, and
Right.
and yeah, there's a sense of sometimes wanting to, in uncertainty, perhaps wanting to, in two ways, wanting to go back to experience to get that sense of security, but also at the same time remembering that as a no, you, sort of as a reminder. No, remember that moment. You are on the right
Mm,
path. You are on the right track. You just got to keep going. But as I'm talking to you about it, I'm sort of experiencing the um, within me, like all the pieces of the puzzle, all not quite fitting together. Like there's an
mm,
awareness of I'm not in that moment of that great aha sort of space, and
mm,
and so as I'm talking about it, it's like yeah, I think we can live in that space for extended periods of time, or at least I tend to. And I think that's just part of the
mm,
journey, part of whether that's type 4, more type 4 Enneagram stuff, or whether that's INFJ, that sort of journey of self actualization and trying to find that deeper self,
yeah.
and that fulfillment that comes with it.
Mm.
So,
How does that
yeah.
kind of going back, tying that in with again with sort of the security and going back? Um,
Mm,
when you do, I'm not sure if you have, you probably have, gone back and reevaluated a certain jigsaw puzzle, aha moment, the completed framed puzzle. Do you, each time you take it down from the wall and say, let's re-examine this puzzle, does that take a bite out of the foundation of your of security to your identity, or do you feel like, oh, that's just who I am, and sometimes we take it down and we re-examine it and put it back up, or does each time you take that off the wall and reevaluate those aha moments, does that sort of take a bite out of you and say, wow, I'm just not getting it, or why am I just always never
Mm.
getting it, or do you think that's just how it is and you just learn and move on and
Yeah, I'm not sure
or
if I'm.
deal with that?
Yeah, no, I hear that. I don't know if I'm going to answer the question or not, but the sense I have with it is that those aha moments, they have this sort of dual thing of being all connected and feeling the security of that. Yet, as I move into the next space of life, if you like, there's a sense of what that moment is telling me. I don't feel like I measure up to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right, right. So you have that moment of connectedness, and then as you go along, it's not like fragmented, but it's just not as certain or as clear. And I'm not quite sure if I'm communicating it clearly enough, but there's a sense of um, feeling like I don't measure up to that moment, or that um, there's like an accepting, a journey of accepting who I am. Is that making any sense?
Yes, 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 it does. So from what I'm hearing, it's more of, like you said, a journey. You know,
Mm.
you're you're learning about yourself, and in a sense, like it's you know you make not mistakes, but you're constantly learning and evolving rather than saying, okay, that was a mistake. It wasn't a true, authentic aha
Mm.
moment, but at that time and place, it was a pivotal point in your learning.
Mm.
It's not, but it was authentic. And then you moved on, and then you learned more about it. And maybe you revealed more truth about what you thought you knew, and you,
Yeah.
I guess, shed more light on that aha moment than you at that time you thought you knew. So maybe the context changes, and the further you progress, the more context you have to shed more light on the area.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
from what I'm hearing. That seems.
Yeah. I don't think, for me at least, it doesn't feel as conscious as that. Like I'm gonna now sit down and examine, take that piece off the wall of like that. Like I don't think it's as intentional or
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
conscious or
Okay.
direct as that. It's kind of just all happening in there all at once, and
Mm.
that's why I think part of this connects to a level that I'm not aware of yet. It's affecting me, and I think it ties back to what I was
Uh,
saying before. There's these eternal questions that I have that I don't quite know I have until they're answered, and then I go, that's what I've been looking for. That's what I've been wondering about. Although sometimes it's not conscious. There's
uh,
another piece to what you're saying that I wanted to respond to, but it's just I've lost it.
okay. Yeah. So
So so hmm.
yeah,
So
I
what
just
about for
want to
you?
quickly reflect that on the INFP. So we've talked
Mm.
about for our viewer here. We're talking about identity and the INFJ's perspective. Oh, he's gone now, but the INFJ's perspective on identity. So now the INFP. Um, like it's funny how you said you don't see it as when you progress and learn more you're not taking those pictures off the wall and re-examining those boxes or those truths you found out, whereas I think the
Mm.
INFP in a sense is much more intentional than people realize, whereas the INFJ, as you say, more fluid. Things just move on and they progress, and you're unconsciously making these connections, and you have this introverted intuition about putting them together, necessarily mapping it out and saying this is where I am, this is where I have to move. But you do have a sense of this was the right decision, and now this is based on this, but you're not consciously thinking that, but that's what you're doing. Whereas the INFP, I feel, in a sense, we do make certain decisions when we are moving in certain areas because
Mm.
we don't. usually make any big, huge decisions. We're very open to everything, you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're so open. That's why we have so many different characters. We can do so many different roles or this or that. We're so fluid. But when we do make a decision, we have to do a cons our pseudo introverted intuition is where we are unconsciously playing many characters. That's our natural habitat, natural identity is to play many things
Mm-hmm.
rather than make unconscious decisions. We make unconscious decisions to do everything. So when we actually make a decision,
Mm.
like to move forward, we actually have to do it very, very consciously. And so we're very aware of when we take and how that relates to other aha moments, or if I'm wrong, what does that mean? You know,
Mm.
it
Mm.
we feel that very, very deeply because we're actually consciously looking at it.
It's interesting, in a sense, just a reflection that almost seems. I don't believe it is, but on one level, it almost seems a bit of a contradiction of the two types because usually there's a sense of INFPs kind of being, um, very open-ended and just sort of moving through life or moving, like it doesn't seem like there's a lot consciously going on, at least from the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
it's interesting, and for the INFJ, at least for me anyway, there's certain level where there's something very fluid going on underneath, yet externally we can seem quite definite, quite solid, quite intentional. Yet there's this other piece that's very, very not like that. That is operating all at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
just a
okay.
question on that, if I can.
Sure. Yeah.
The introverted sensing. How does that fit to the picture? Like, this is just my own take on it. Like, INF, there's a few comments on one of my videos. I think you mentioned it as well before we recorded about
Uh-huh.
what is INFP sort of aware of or thinking they don't have an identity or that what is it? Like, it doesn't seem
Yes.
to be very obvious to them. And so just a reflection on that would be like the NE is quite you know externally all over the place. It's comfortable to go wherever it wants to go. An introverted
Right.
feeling is similar. It's like just it's got no necessarily like a center
Mm-hmm.
point, or at least doesn't appear to. So it's all very, very open ended. And then there's this introverted sensing that has this memory bank of experiences that's sort of filed away, which is very different to those other two functions. Just does that resonate?
Um. Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Um. I I feel like we are sort of I don't know. Summarize that again, and then I'm gonna kind of. I had a thought there when you were talking. That last
Go for
sentence.
it. Go for it.
Can you summarize that last sentence again? I had a thought there.
My last sentence.
Your
I was in the
last
introverted
thought.
sensing. The introverted sensing piece,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like it's got this memory bank of
Oh yeah. Oh,
experience.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I sort of okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. And I want to tie that into sort of the INFP and the, I guess, lack of identity.
Yeah.
Um. Whereas the INFP usually struggles with who am I? I guess they say more than most, more than the INFJ. Which is understandable since the INFJ makes in their spread out introverted intuition, is making progress by having certain points that they can move off of and connect the dots. Whereas our memory bank, I feel like your memory bank has are these like that are connected, right? Whereas our memory bank is this cloud, and
Hmm.
they're like electrons moving around in like the center of an atom here. It's like they're there, but they're everywhere at all times, and
Mm-hmm.
they're never at any one point. Where it's like if you looked at the INFJ, it's like if you had that classic picture of the atom. Oh, these are where the electrons are. Here's all your memory bank spots. Yes, they can move, and in the expert intuition, maybe they are all fuzzy like that because it's all unconscious.
Mm.
But you know, how for us, it is always this haze around it, and I think it's the
Mm.
feeling of never ever having those solid memory bank spots, those connections there that we
Right.
feel lost. But it's I think INFPs need to realize the very fact that we have this sort of haze is that is our identity, is this
Yes.
haze, right?
Yes.
This haze, and I think it's when we come to realize this and accept that we are the haze, then we have
Mm-hmm.
this sudden realization, like, oh my God, and you feel connected. And that's the moment you feel connected to what?
Mm.
To yourself. This notion of what you are, the haze. But then when you forget about that, you start going, okay, who am I again? You forget that what that was all about, and you start going,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm lost in the
Mm-hmm.
haze. And then you have to go, oh, let's step back again. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm the guy who gets lost, or I'm the guy who's always in many places at one point at one time. So it's just we forget that we're not singular. We're a multi-dimensional kind of morphing personality in
Mm.
a lot of ways. And we forget that.
Right.
That's why we feel lost.
So accepting what is a big piece of embracing one's identity, at least from the INF. Well, I think everybody could say that, but for the INFP, it's like embracing the fuzziness, embracing, in a sense, the lack of apparent structure is your identity. Embrace that, accept that, and be comfortable with that. That was that basically what
Yeah,
you're saying?
yeah, and I had that in a comment in one of the other videos. I said, like the classic Bruce Lee saying, put water into a teacup, it becomes a teacup, or a teapot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm.
so, so if you pour water into a cup, it, um, am I the cup? Yeah, you are the cup. But what are you really? Oh, you're water. If you take the
Mm.
water out of the cup, well, what are you? You're just water waiting to go into another container
Mm.
to be that container. But
Yeah.
that doesn't take away from your identity. You are still water. You're just that flexible. You know,
Right.
um,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's like you know. So just because you feel lost in between these containers doesn't mean you're any less than any other personality. If anything, I feel like we're the luckiest. Yes, we are the most, I want to say, like, damned or plagued because we feel abandoned, we feel lost, and all this, and we have no identity. Oh, yes, so, we have all these problems, emotionally, mentally, whatever it is. But the
Mm.
fact is, we're also blessed with something that is the ability to really feel and really want to feel other perspectives and people and to
Yeah.
become the teacups and teapots of the world and or whatever it is we go into. And not people
Mm.
feel comfortable getting out of their own skin and becoming other people. They're like, why would I want to do that? I'm me. I don't want to be you, because they're comfortable
Mm.
in being that
Mm.
one role. Whereas we were like, well, I
Yeah.
would love to see what it's like in your shoes. That must be a real fun thrill. It must be like a drama, to be that character. What is that like? So I
Yeah.
think very lucky in that sense to see many have glasses with many lenses.
Mm.
It
Mm.
can be confusing. You get lost at times because you have so many lenses. We don't know which one we are right now. But the fact that we can do
Mm.
that is, I think, a blessing.
Mm. Just so on that, like the part of what I think you're saying, there's a sense of who am I within within the context of others, and so there's that other and me, that sort of dichotomy, or the distinction between the two. And I think what I want to say ties into that a little bit. And what I was wanting to say before is part of those INFJ, or my INFJ sort of moments, and that those things. There is a piece of that which is actually very external, in the sense of what those moments are telling me about the world I'm in, and the state of it, and some of the truth of what I'm seeing externally, whether it's in one-on-one relationships, or with institutions, or the world in general, or spirituality, or whatever it is. There's a sense of part of the identity clarification or identification comes from the distinction between what I'm becoming aware of out there, and what does that say about who I am. And now that might sound, I'm not sure if it does, but it might sound flaky, but it's not. There's a sense of, with the truth I'm seeing out here, helps to inform me of what my truth is, or what I believe, or who I am. And so yeah, there's certainly an extroverted or an external aspect to the identity awareness that I think goes on as well.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap this up here pretty soon. It's been about 20 minutes, but I just want to kind of touch on the last little bit there. You mentioned about the external world and external information, and how that reflects and kind of works with your personal identity growth. So I'm seeing it as, since INFJ pieces together unconsciously all these different parts of the world, and takes it inward and works with it and builds on it. When you encounter these truths of the world, or you see a piece of information and you say, this looks like a credible piece of information, this is a possible truth, whatever it is, you take it in and use it as a piece, and you add it to your collection. At the moment you are encountering this piece of information, at what point in your identity, or like, do you accept it or allow it inside before you take it in or let it in the gate? What criteria does it have to pass? Because from my perspective as an INFP, there is no criteria. That to say the word criteria is blasphemy. It's like, what do you mean criteria? Reality.
Yes.
Reality doesn't use words like criteria. Reality doesn't even speak English. Okay, language isn't even really anything. We're not even doing anything right now. When it comes down to it, it's like, we are so out there that really it's like, just accept the ultimate feeling of now, and soak in this poetic moment and work with it.
Yes.
But don't try to say anything to it. Don't bug it. Just accept it.
Yes.
Don't try to manipulate it. So what's your criteria, and how do you what's your thinking process when you want to let it in the gate?
Yeah. No, I'm laughing because I'm identifying with you, because when you use the word criteria, I was like, where did that word come from? That doesn't fit anywhere. There's no evaluation, and yes, that fits, and I'm going to put it inside me. There's none of that going on at all. It's almost all instantaneous. If it fits, it just fits, and it goes in, and there's no choice involved. There's no conscious choice. There's an instant yes, that fits. That's it. And in that sense, there's no evaluation, because it's like deeper down inside. whatever's being said, whatever's happening, whatever circumstances helping to create this experience, it's all beyond the awareness, and then it's a piece that just instantly fits in place, and there's the experience. The criteria, if we wanted to use that word, is the experience is like it absolutely fits 100%. So the criteria is met. So the
So,
experience of the moment is the confirmation, is the evaluation.
ah, that's very interesting. You kind of also tied that back into the very beginning of our discussion here, which was the aha moments you had. Um,
Mm,
so the aha moment that, like, I don't want to, put words in your mouth, but it seems like it's a moment of insight. These insightful moments that
absolutely.
that and insightful moments by definition are something that you don't need to verify. You know it's truth by fact that it is true. Instantaneously. You don't need to double check
Yep.
anything. So
Yep.
it's like it's I say self-verified or
Mm,
self-validating criteria.
yep.
So
Yep.
so I guess you don't let it in the gate; it lets itself in the gate.
Yes. Absolutely. And to do any kind of, I'm going to sit down and analyze this would kill it. You know,
Oh, I see. Yeah,
it
yeah,
just is,
yeah.
and it is. You be in it, you feel it, you experience it, you
Mm.
accept it. That's all that needs to sort of happen.
Uh, I think, and I think that's where we kind of cross paths there a little bit with the
Right.
self realizing, self validating criteria. Whereas you use criteria that comes in the gate on its own terms. You know,
Yeah.
whereas for us, I wouldn't say it's criteria. I would say that I like the word unconscious truths, universal truths. I want to say
Mm-hmm.
poetic truths.
Yep.
Um, these huge grand scale poetic truths are what are is the criteria. It's almost like no, we use the feeling just of the universal knowing as the criteria, and you're like, what is that? That sounds very out there. Universal knowing, a criteria, but all INFPs would understand that
Yep.
that kind of deep resonating um, uh, and we're not using introvert intuition, anything like that. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different sort of information absorption. Um, I know sort of element there.
Yeah.
And the closest thing I
Well.
could say is sort of a poetic knowledge of the
Mm,
universe, rather
wow.
than something that is more. Rather like yours is maybe more systematic. Systematic insight, where it's like you have a system that it's a system that has insight within itself. It's I don't know. It's like you're building like AI. AI is like sparks in the machine somehow realizes it's a machine, right? That's like the INFJ somehow, and it's like
Well.
it's like to me I feel like you are like the singularity. It's like you realize, wow, this is what it is, but because you have all these different pins and needles and things processing, and you have these insightful moments, and these sparks of self realization.
Yeah.
Whereas we I think the INFPs just take it one step back and just say, what are machines? I feel like
Mm,
you're maybe INFJs are a more grounded INFP. I don't really know, but I
yeah.
just feel like
Well.
we just go back one step.
Yeah. Well, I'm more identified with the INFP description that you gave than the INFJ description that you gave me.
Oh, really?
The systematic thing, system doesn't fit for me
Mm.
at least. No doubt there is a system there, but I can't sort of explain it. I see that when I hear the word system, I think more of a TE, extroverted thinking concept. But when you say universal truths and that more resonates with me. When it is just a truth, then it has to be, then it's just received because it's truth. But I wouldn't use the
Okay.
word poetic. The only word I wouldn't use that you described for INFP is the word poetic. Yeah, I see that more as a INFP um, word in this context, at least. Are you still there?
Are you back now? Okay, yeah. Um,
Yep.
the viewer just left. I think my internet went out and he left. Um, but I think yeah, you're. This will be the last thing I'm going to say here. Maybe probably cut out.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I was saying, you're right. Maybe machine's not a good thing to say, good way to say it. But maybe I feel like I was getting close. And what I was trying to say is maybe it's not that grounded as a machine, but I would say
Right.
maybe it's close.
I
Okay,
think I can hear you. Yep.
and I think it'll stick this time. I'm not sure, but I was saying I think you're closer, or INFJs are closer to a biological system rather than a mechanical one. Um,
Mm.
whereas um, maybe a machine is something you think is, is more consciously aware of what it's doing and sending functions to other things. Um, but whereas the biological system is not necessarily consciously, I feel like it's more like an unconscious thing.
Mm.
It's more like unconscious. How does it process sunlight? It just does. That's how it gets its insight. Whatever. It
Yeah.
just does it.
Yes.
So maybe it's closer to like a biological system rather than a mechanical one. And I feel like
Mm.
maybe the INFP is again just is one step back and just says, well, what's a biological system? You
Yeah.
know, you know,
To, to,
it is because it has no grounding at all.
yeah. I would want to use the word, for me personally, the word spiritual there, but instead of biological. But maybe that'll tie into another to our next video, wherever we're going next, in regards
Okay,
to some of the other conversations we're going to have.
let's do that. All right, so let's wrap this up. Thank you,
Sure.
everybody, for that who participated here. Tune we will This will be up online shortly after this broadcast. And stay tuned for the next one. We'll have a second part in this series, which is going to talk about let's see here, death and possibly characters and sticking to things.
Hmm.
So thank you everybody, and thank you Scott for the discussion.
No problem. Thank you. It's been great.